always use.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. This is Sheets, and I have Brave Jayhawk Jensen here. And I already told Bobby that my 12 o'clock thing, I'm gonna have to. This is gonna go over. It just is. So I told him to do the 12 o'clock thing without me. If we get this done by then, it'll be a freaking miracle. Okay, so as I mentioned to you guys before when we did this preview, before I got a chance to go away, I just came back from Arizona actually. Freaking beautiful out there. Um, is that this pool and the Survivor NCAA March Madness Survivor pool will destroy your brain. Okay, and every single year I say this is the year I'm going to be chilled, and I'm not going to let it ruin my brain. I'm just going to just I know what to do. But then I made the mistake of playing too big this year and played like a whole bunch of entries. Okay, and the good news is that hey, I got a bunch of entries left. The bad news is that increases your brain from.
But
Okay.
I actually disagree because if you did less entries like I've done in the past, you will dive so deep
I guess
into the
so. I
into the
guess
ring
so.
into the because before we started the recording, we discussed this. We would go deep into what the other entries were remaining to figure out paths. When you have this many entries, you don't have the time to do that. But if you only had 10 or 20 to start with and had a few left, you would probably be doing that. And so you end up spending the same amount of time
So
just on
this
less.
is how hard this is. It's so hard that for the first time since Mike and I've been doing these for 3 years, that we've actually had to go on before and actually talk about this stuff beforehand. Like we go on Survivor Football, like yeah, listen, we just fire it off, whatever it is. This is really, really hard. Okay. And to the point where we just spent like 15 minutes like just questioning each other, like, wait, are we sure about this? Do we have to is this right? And I think that we're right. But it's hard. It's just hard. So this is what we're gonna do. Okay, we're gonna go over the rules, and then we're gonna go over what's going on here, and then we're going to go over the worst case scenarios and the best case scenarios, and then we're going to again we're never going to be able to get through all my entries because we just have too many. But we're going to go over some concepts and we're going to see what's up. Now the other thing I want to do, I'm going to do somebody a favor. My friend Ryan, who I know back from poker, he reached out to me and he gave me a couple of entries, and we're going to go over his. Well, actually, might use his as a whatchamacallit, as a template um, to discuss some of this stuff. But again, so this is what you're looking at. You're looking at the brackets, and I at this point it doesn't matter what happened in the first two rounds. That's why I just advanced everybody here to the final 16. Um, and what you see circled are the teams that I've used. Okay. Um, and just so you guys remember, the rules of all my pools. Okay, if your pools are more restricted than this, I can't help you. Okay, but the rules of my pools are that for the round of 16, you have to pick one game on Thursday, which is the top left or the bottom right quadrants. And then you have to pick one pick on Friday, which is obviously the bottom left or the top right quadrants. And then for the
Switch that.
oh
I think you said it the wrong way the first
sorry,
time.
the top right and bottom left are Thursday. Sorry, and then Friday. Sorry, top left and bottom right. Sorry. Again, hashtag brain fart. Um,
Let's call them 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Fine.
Please.
And then for the final eight, you have to make two picks. It doesn't have to be one on Saturday and one on Sunday. You can make two on Saturday, two on Sunday if you want. And then you have to make one pick on the final four day, which is Saturday, and then one pick on the final day, which is Monday. Okay. So here's a couple of rules that you have to, first of all, we're presuming that you have to win. Okay, we're presuming that you have to get through everything and to get through everything. Now, sometimes you can get lucky and win before you have to even make a pick or whatever it is. But unfortunately, chalk has been pretty good so far. Maryland came through the buzzer beater at 40% ownership, by the way. The only buzzer beater of the whole tournament was a 40% owned Maryland with that queen, which is total torture. Okay. but so we have that situation. So what I want to show you is like first of all like the worst case scenario to give you an idea of one main rule that you have to keep in mind. Okay, so this is an entry. It's called Sheets. That's what it is in my entry. And the thing you have to remember is that you cannot have teams that you've used playing each other in the final eight. Okay. If you can backtrack from that, you can kind of see where you need to go. And again, for those of you that are not well versed in this, here's an example of why. So let's just say, for example, that we were, dumb. We didn't realize this, and we took Houston or Purdue, right, on Thursday, excuse me, on Friday. They won. Yay. Let's say you took Purdue. You took an underdog against Houston. You think you're going to, yes, let's go. And Purdue gets the big buzzer beater and whatever it is. And they're like, yes. So then what ends up happening is you then would have Purdue having been used against, now I'd have whoever wins between Kentucky and Tennessee, I will have used those two. And now you will have been frozen out. And the reason why is because let's say you can't pick anybody here anymore. Well, remember, if for the final eight, you have to pick one from each side, okay, to be able to get to the final four. So here you can pick from the top right, but you'll have nobody to pick at from the bottom right. So
for the following week, yeah,
you're completely frozen out. So you have to make sure that you do not have two teams playing each other in the final eight. So as an example, like let's take this entry as an example. This is I consider.
This is a let me jump. This is a great starting point. We're looking at
Yeah.
quadrant 1, which is the top left, and quadrant 4, the bottom right.
Yep.
And the goal here, guys, is to give yourself a chance to make a pick every single day to not get boxed out. So there's only one way possible to do that. We're looking at quadrant 1 and 4. You have to take Ole Miss in quadrant 1.
Well,
pretty much.
The old chess videos, what they would do is you would say, actually, if you want, stop the video and try to see which team scores, like on Friday, and the answer is Mississippi, and we're gonna talk about why in a second. But like you see, I hope you guys see like why this is like a bad entry. This is a bad entry because this one. I will have had to have taken 6 teams at this point, and 5 of them are still alive. So that's not good. Like if you've taken 6 teams so far, and 5 of them have not gotten knocked out yet, you're going to have trouble. Okay, and this is what happens. So like, take a look even at Thursday, for example. Thursday already, like in the top right, you've got serious issues. Like you need both. First of all, you need both Duke and Alabama to win, pretty much, right? But I mean, you have very, very little flexibility. But forget Thursday. Let's say you're fortunate enough to get through Thursday. Here's why Friday, Mississippi is forced. Okay, well, it's sort of forced. So you have only 2 ways to get out of this quadrant. In other words, you can't have anybody that you pick make the final 4. So how are you going to do that? Well, you only have 2 choices here from Friday. Remember, we can't pick Houston or Purdue. This whole quadrant is dead. So you only have 3 teams to pick from. If you picked Auburn, for example, over Michigan, then you know what you would need? Then you would need the following to happen. You would need Mississippi to win, and then for Mississippi to beat Auburn in the final 8. Otherwise, you're dead. So if you're going to need Mississippi to beat Michigan State anyway, you may as well just pick them now, because then you have Mississippi, and then you don't even care who wins this other game. You at least have a shot to have whoever wins this game beat you. If you play the Auburn-Michigan game, you need Mississippi State to win twice. So unfortunately, this is the predicament I put myself in.
I actually think this is a good entry,
but fortunately, I'm forced.
It makes it easy. The worst thing that you can do when the more teams that you have left that you've already taken, you have to be more careful. So if in a situation like this, it makes it easier once you recognize what your only viable options are to not get boxed out. And luckily for Friday, it's very simple. You just have to take Ole Miss, and then just hope they lose, to win, then lose to Auburn or Michigan. But what you really have to do is, and again on what you're looking at here, the teams he's already taken, he has circled, and
right.
make sure you know which regions are playing on each day. That is also extremely important. 1 and 4 are on Friday, and then 2 and 3 are on Thursday.
Well, we're going to go to the other extreme in a second, but it's so funny. I realized that the one thing that's good, I guess, about this entry is that it's got this thing that we've talked about before we went on the air. This bottom left quadrant being completely peaceful. Because as you kind of very, very accurately pointed out, keeping this bottom left quadrant peaceful is like a real big moneymaker if it works out. We're going to get to that in a minute. So like even on an entry like this, like I have to pick someone on Thursday. I mean, I may as well, but I can't. Like if I picked, say, Bama, and then I need the Bama Duke parlay, then I would have to, who could I even pick? I guess I could pick Duke over here, and then I would need the combination of Houston to beat Purdue and then root against Houston. So yeah, I could actually do this over here. Now we'll talk about this kind of juicy bottom left quadrant. But we'll talk about it in terms of this other entry that we went over before. So this is, I think, the opposite of the opposite. This is what a good entry looks like. So this entry, it's not only good because it has only 2 teams used, but also this pool was harder. Like this particular pool I was in required you to pick 2 picks Thursday and 2 picks Friday. So this pool's already like, it should have been decimated more with Maryland, but well, if that's the case, then how cool would it be if Maryland actually lost and this pool would have been dead. But anyway, this pool is much, it's got only like 1/3 of the people left as opposed to the other pools that have about half of them left or whatever. So there's the good news is that I have like all these different options, but that means that you really have to make sure to get it right. So why don't you talk about this particular entry in the same way that you were talking about it before we went on?
So what I asked Eric for when I was looking into this morning was what the pick availability was, and the website doesn't have the Friday one, and I do want to get to the Friday one later.
Probably does. I just can't find
because I think it's very important. I think it'll offer tiebreakers for our other discussion. But do you want to pop it up really quick?
Yeah, let's see if we can't find it.
Because this will visualize will make it so much easier.
I mean,
now last week I kept referencing a pool from a couple 2 or 3 years ago. It was the year that Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue, and then Florida Atlantic made the Final Four, and then Princeton made the Sweet 16 as a 15 seed. And I referenced it 3 or 4 different times in that podcast where the situation that popped up was when these upsets start happening, especially with very high seeds like that, it creates a really good it creates what seemingly looks like a very optimal path, but it's a chalk path. And that's what happened in Florida Atlantic that one year. They win the first round. I don't know if anyone picked them or not, but they play a 16 seed and then everyone picks them. Okay, well, they advance. But what was set up that year is the next round is against the 5-4, the 5-4 team most likely. And they weren't going to be that big of an underdog. So my partner and I are like, well, let's fade this game.
All right, go ahead.
So Florida Atlantic was like a 10-point favorite against the 16 seed in the second round. Now, a lot of people are going to take them. If they lose, that's great. We're still in most likely, and then a lot of people get knocked out. But if they win, they're not going to be that big of an underdog in the third round. So we decided, let's jump on them and hope they keep winning. And they're going to keep getting picked. And then people are going to just get naturally boxed out. They'll run out of picks. The quadrant 3, this situation got set. This is very, very good spot if you have not used these teams. The two least available teams that play on Thursday are in the same quadrant, and they don't play each other. Right. Maryland and Texas Tech. And he's going to show you the percentages for this one. Remember, this is an extra pick, so it's going to be much more exaggerated than what yours is.
Here it is right here. So, so Maryland, there are only 353 people left in this. Maryland is only 92, and Texas Tech is 162. They're the two least picked of the least available of the whole board on Thursday.
Now that might not seem like a big deal, but when you compare it, it's all relative. Look at the other teams, how available the other teams are. No one's going to pick, some of these teams in the next round. Like, no one's picking Arizona in the next round. I'd be hard pressed to see why you would even ever be in a situation where you'd have to do that. Meaning, a lot of people are going to be picking from a much smaller group of teams, especially when you have some pretty big favorited teams. There's no coin flips here. They're 6, 5, 5, 9 are the spreads. What's going to happen here is I think in terms of how am I going to make the most money, and by that I mean what is the most optimal path for scooping that's realistic. And that is, if I have not used, and I had Eric find one of these entries, find an entry where you haven't taken Maryland or Texas Tech. And this is even better because it required extra picks on Thursday and Friday last week. He didn't take either of those teams. Texas Tech is going to be heavily picked on Thursday.
They'll be the chalkiest team on. No, I think between I think Texas Tech and Bama will be very, very chalky.
It'll be very chalky. And, Maryland, they're an underdog, but when you haven't used either of them, remember, eventually your pick on Thursday, if you win, you don't get any more decisions. There's no decisions after that. It's you have more or less have forced picks as long as you use common sense and reason. Otherwise, you're just going to box yourself out. So if you have to take an underdog in a later round, you do it because it's preservation of life. That's your only way to not get boxed out and be able to make the full allotment of picks.
So this one. Here's another entry that again didn't use either Maryland or Texas Tech.
And what's good about this is Texas Tech is going to be heavily picked anyway. But what happens if Maryland beats Florida? And this is what will happen. All the people. Let's say now we're on the weekend. If Texas Tech wins, if they lose, a bunch of people are out. That's fine. But I think the most optimal way is you want Texas Tech and Maryland both to win, because the people who got there with Texas Tech, if they already used Maryland, and Maryland was a heavily used team, they can't make the full allotment of picks. They're going to get boxed out at some point. But if you haven't used either of those teams, it doesn't matter which one wins, because you can either pick one or you just naturally take whoever you get and then take them in the next round. I think that the way you win the most money this year is if you haven't used either of those teams and you have viable picks elsewhere, you want Maryland or Texas Tech to go to the championship game. That's how you're going to make.
What if you have a one like this? Like, this is Kelly 8. This one I didn't use Maryland or Texas. This one I actually tried to get a little different. I played Florida. Do you think I should still leave this one alone, or should I actually pick Maryland to beat Florida?
I would have if this was my entry, I would have taken Florida, knowing I'd probably leaning toward taking Maryland anyway.
But I can do the same thing. I don't have to take them. I can just root for them.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, I guess you just don't take them and hope that they win.
Yeah. I look for it either take them or root for them. That's why.
Because again, on these chalky teams at this point, you're not losing if they don't lose. You can win later. Because for the chalk, you win two ways. You win if they lose, assuming you win your game, but you also win later if that team keeps winning. That team keeps winning, it boxes all of those people out who have already taken that team. And then if you have multiple chalky teams from the same quadrant, you could have a free roll spot where if Maryland plays Texas Tech, it doesn't matter who wins the game. Not many people even have a choice, and then you could fade that game again.
Okay. Here's look at this one. So here's another interesting point. So here's username LFG. So this one, I have these four again. I have all of Thursday available. I have all 8 teams available, and Fridays is a little fishy. So here is another reason why. See, it's very possible that I have issues in this quadrant. So if I have issues in these quadrant, I probably want to keep this one clean, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and it's just better anyway, because at some point, I would never want to take quadrant 3. I just wouldn't. Again, don't think of it in terms, oh, well, I'm going to need an underdog to happen. Well, there's a good chance that could happen anyway. Even if you play perfectly, if one of the wrong results happens in another game that you have no control over, you didn't pick the game, that might cause you needing an upset later to stay alive. So don't think of it that way. Think of it in terms of optimal path.
I wonder if I have any entries for I want to give an example. Okay, this one is one with a clean bottom right. I wanted to see if it made a difference, but this one, no, there's no way. I was going to say if I was going to look for an entry that had a clean.
Before we continue, Eric, could we look at some of these teams and how much they were picked, please, on the first 2 rounds for the Friday teams?
Yeah.
We can just look at the individual pick breakdown by the day or something.
I don't know. Let's see how we even do that.
I'll go to Thursday first.
Oh, we could do that actually. Okay, so Thursday.
I just want to get an idea, because I thought Michigan. I thought Michigan State and Tennessee might have been pretty heavily picked teams. I want to see if I was even close.
This is the pool, by the way, with the 2 picks per.
Oh yeah.
You want me to go to the other one?
Yeah, please.
Let's go to the other one instead. This is like the big flagship splash one. Let's take a look at stats.
Oh, that's a great one.
So day 1, Wisconsin was top by a lot, at 22%, and then everybody else was like under.
So, okay, Tennessee was 3%, and is Michigan? Okay, so I want to see Auburn.
Auburn was nothing, like 1%.
Michigan is nothing. Okay, let's go to Friday, please.
Iowa State.
It is for the teams remaining. So, Michigan State was 6%. That's one of the ones I'm interested in. Okay, Kentucky was 13. Okay, you can go to Saturday, please. Okay, Tennessee was 8. And obviously, no one probably picked Kentucky. No one picked Michigan. Auburn, no one picked Auburn. Okay, so Purdue. Okay, so which makes sense. Purdue was far and away the heaviest picked team for the teams playing on Friday, and they play Houston. The reason I wanted to look at this is the pick availability in a lot of cases can determine what you should do. If you're the only person with a team left, that's going to dictate what your pick should be. If no one has something, you want that team to win. You don't even need to pick them. If they just win, it's eventually going to eliminate somebody because they can't pick them. But that doesn't help with Purdue since they are playing Houston. Except for I think what that information would lead me to believe is you should lean more toward picking the Kentucky-Tennessee game, and given the chance that if Purdue wins, it'll knock out a lot of the Houston people, and the people who already took Purdue would be boxed out.
Let's look at Sunday.
Does that make sense?
It does. Sunday as actually. Oh,
Oh,
so,
I forgot. I'm sorry, I forgot about Sunday. Yeah, okay, Michigan State. That's the one I thought was pretty heavily picked too. Michigan State and Tennessee. So I was right on that. Okay. Um.
and this was the pool killer, Maryland, the
Oh,
buzzer beater at
yeah.
40% ownership. That's rough business. Um, actually, that this is actually yeah, and then and this obviously we don't have anything.
Okay. So what those percentages tell me, I'm gonna speak in general terms. Michigan State and Tennessee were the highest picked teams of the teams playing on Friday. So meaning they're the least available left. I would prefer, from a general standpoint, to want those teams to keep winning. Like, so if I had a lot of entries, I would look for entries where I have those teams available, and then I would not pick them. And I would hope that they keep winning, because if they keep winning, the people would, other people would get boxed out. More people would be boxed out with those two teams winning than someone else. This is obviously assuming that you're advancing some other way. And where it's relevant to our discussion is we were talking about quadrant 4 between, who to pick between Houston, Purdue, Kentucky, Tennessee. I think because Purdue was more picked than Tennessee, I think that's right. I like the Tennessee route because, yeah, then you get Houston if they win, but if they lose, you would still have Purdue available, and then less people have Purdue available, so that boxed them out.
Let's as an example. Let's do some entries. So here's my friend Ryan. He said, oh, he just sent me a couple entries. He said, hey, what do I do? Whatever. He had some ideas or whatever. So we'll just kind of take a look. These are like the same. These are like the same.
Yeah, this applies too. There's he took Purdue, so that's in play here.
Yeah. And he well, I don't want to say who he was thinking of playing. Well, actually, he could. He. I don't want to get too into it, but he was considering playing Duke because he has this idea that Bam is going to beat Duke some way, which is just fine, But that was his kind of logic here. But if I were just like looking at this board here, I mean, I do see. I mean, like you said, like Florida, Maryland, Texas, Arkansas. I guess it would fit our concept of keeping that Florida, Maryland, Texas, Arkansas thing clean, right?
Yeah.
If you were going to do that, I mean, I'm not as bold. Like I would probably, if I were going to do that, I would just play the better percentage play and play Bama, root for Duke, and then root for Duke to beat Bama or something like that. If you play Duke, I mean, you're asking, I mean, for a tough parlay. You just are. I mean, they have to win, which is likely, and then they have to lose next round. I mean, they're going to be, even against Alabama, they're going to be a 70% favorite. So it's a tough scene, and if you get the wrong result, if you get Duke winning and then BYU winning, then you need
that's
you
even
to beat
worse.
you. It's rough. I'm not telling them not to do it, but I just.
But it comes down. I mean, I agree with you, but it comes down to, if you. This is what we're talking about in football, like Survivor. If you knew what the pick breakdown, that would determine your pick. If you knew that more people were going to lean, like, I think it's clear. If I had this entry and if I had not used any Maryland or Texas Tech, I'm only picking quadrant 2. That's all I'm doing. I'm not doing anything else. So
now, what if I told?
My gut instinct is to take Alabama, but I don't know. I mean, if you've played in these pools in the past,
it's okay. We can. He's a big boy. You know what I mean? Like it's fine.
I would love to make fun of him for this thinking, but I'm not convinced that might not be the optimal route.
Just think of it this way: like if Bam is 35% owned, which they could be. I mean, honestly. Because people are looking at the same thing I'm looking at. Like, listen, you play Bama, then they're a big favorite, then they'll lose to Duke, and then you're off to the races. It's the same reason why people are very likely, if they have them available, to play Texas Tech. You play Tech, then you root for Florida, and Florida beats Tech. That's easy.
No, that's true, but all that matters here, it doesn't matter how many people are left. It matters how many people are going to take this path.
Right.
And
That's
if you knew that 75% of people were going to go through quadrant two on Thursday, and they took it with Alabama, you would take Duke, even if you're taking the worst of it EV
right.
wise, because
Yeah,
your equity is higher.
that's
So
right.
if really listen closely to what Eric's saying is if you take Duke on Thursday, you need them to lose to either BYU or Alabama. And if BYU were to upset Alabama, they would be a higher, then you need like a 10-point, underdog or something to happen. But if Alabama wins, they're going to win more of the time. It's going to be smaller. So you need that exact combo. Don't think of it in terms of just Duke winning or just Alabama winning. But the same thing goes the other way. If you pick Alabama, if Duke loses to Arizona,
Well,
this
then you're dead.
entry is boxed out at some
Right.
point.
Right. But again, we talked about that offline before. I mean, the parlay is pretty strong. I mean, the parlay of let's look at the two parlays. Just if all you want to do is in advance, right? So let's say that if you didn't worry about popularity, if you wanted to play Duke, then you need the parlay of Duke winning, which is let's say zero point 0.7. It's more, but let's say it's 0.7, and then lose the next round, which is let's say zero point 0.3, right? Because there'll be a zero point 0.7 in the next round too. So let's say that's your 20% in that parlay. Or if you play Bama, then you'll need Bama, Duke, and Duke, right? Because you need Duke win twice, but that's fine too because Bama is 0.7, then Duke is 0.7, and Duke will probably be 0.7 again. So that's 0.7, 0.7, 0.7. That's like 0.35. So actually, even though you need three things to win that way, it's like 50% more likely that the Bama Duke Bama parlay comes in than the Duke lose to anybody parlay comes in. So the only reason you wouldn't like if your whole goal was just to survive and get to the end, I think Bama is just like an infinitely better play. But how important is it to get like immediate leverage? You know what I mean? And try to throttle people by if people take Bama, right? And then like I don't know, like some of the articles that I've read and some of
I
the
think
is that it's not as important to knock people out right now.
I think Duke's the better play.
Okay.
The reason because you got to I think I'm just it's off the cuff here. You also need that whoever makes the Final Four to lose the next game if you're picking that game.
That's right.
So here's the advantage: if you take Duke, you need Alabama or BYU to beat Duke anyway. And now we're going to be talking left side, right side. So I'm talking right side.
Yep.
If you take Duke, you need them to lose, and because whoever they play is going to be an underdog, you're probably more likely just going to take them right off the bat. You're not going to save them for the championship game.
Because you could have like if you take Duke, then you're going to need BYU or Alabama to beat them. Okay, and if that's the case, then you're going to probably want to have since you're going to need Houston to beat Purdue anyway, right? Probably. You're going to want to have Houston, and that's good, right? To have a Houston available in the Final Four.
Or Tennessee, because
Tennessee, who's about equal.
Tennessee against, let's assume it's Alabama.
Right.
Tennessee's like coin flip against Alabama, and Houston's a favorite against Alabama.
Right.
If Purdue gets there, you're boxed out anyway because you already took Purdue's. And Kentucky's the other one. They would be, I don't know, 4-point underdog or something. So by going Duke first, your second game is harder, but your third game is most often easier. The third game being the right side Final Four game because everything needs to fall in place. If you go Alabama, then you need Duke to win, and you would need them to. If you pick Duke to beat Alabama, you would need then Duke to lose.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, like, who's got
Houston?
But that's all right. What's wrong with that? I mean, what's that going to be? Pick 'em? I mean, like,
I think you might be whatever you're losing on the second game. Going the way Ryan's thinking, you might gain back on the third game.
Well, I think the best way to describe the situation, and maybe Duke is the best play because if you play Bama, you have a much better chance of making a pick in the Final Four. But if you play Duke, I think you have maybe a better chance of making a pick in the final two, maybe.
And that could come into play if you have a smaller pool. You can win without winning all 10 games, or whatever it is.
I don't know.
Especially if you have quadrant 3 open. What's fun about this pool is you just don't know, because so much the right pick is solely based off of what the pick distribution is, even more so than NFL Survivor, because the NFL Survivor, there's variables that change from week to week over the course of the season. A team that was a pick 'em could become a 14-point favorite. That's not happening here. We know what the point spreads will be in the upcoming games outside of some fluke injury. You want to find a way to get on optimal path, the road less traveled, but not giving up too much win percentage to be on that path.
Okay, so let's say that we'll use this as a good example. Let's say he picks Duke and they win, which they should, right? Now, I imagine, and we'll talk through this, that who he picks Friday, it has to in part be governed by who wins Thursday. It just has to be, if he has choices. So let's think about this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
So Duke wins. Let's say Duke wins, and doesn't matter who wins BYU Alabama. That's not relevant. Let's say that in the bottom left quadrant we don't get lucky, and Florida and Tech win. Okay, both favorites win, Florida and Tech, and now he'll have them both available for the following Saturday. Okay, if he's he'll be able to make not for the following Saturday for Saturday.
Well,
right?
Aren't you talking about your Friday pick?
No, I am, but I'm getting there. Okay. So if we're assuming that Thursday happens, right, and we don't care who wins, but let's say it's Florida Tech or whatever, so you'll be able to make a pick there, okay, for your final 8, and you're gonna want to, and then so Friday. If you pick,
I got it.
Yeah. So if
I got it.
If you pick the obvious play is to pick. Let me talk through it. Since you got it, you remember.
I got it.
So if you play Michigan State with the idea that Auburn beats them, which is fine, then you're going to want to pick one team from the final 8 on the left, and you'll have options to do that. And then you'll be able to have to take one team from the right, which was going to be you'll be able to take somebody from the bottom right if you're picking from the top left now, and then you should be okay. So what are you thinking?
Okay, so if you take Duke and then Duke wins, that means you need Duke to lose to BYU or Alabama.
Correct.
And then you need that team to lose to quadrant 4 in the final 4.
Correct.
If that's the case, you want the best team possible to be there. And now, you would ideally like to have the best team there, but you really want the least available team there as well.
Okay.
Purdue, as we just looked, was very highly picked in both rounds 1 and 2. Now, even though you don't have to, the inclination for a lot of people, especially on Thursday, Friday, they're not thinking the next step ahead. Because once you make this pick on Thursday, Friday, everything else is, all your picks are made for you. You force yourself onto picks. This is the last time for Thursday and Friday, the last times for choice. And then after that, everything's forced.
I don't know about that. So that's
well, I agree with that. But a lot of times it's
okay.
Forced. But I do agree. The people that have already taken Purdue, which is the most of any team picked for the Friday teams. The Friday teams are quadrant 1 and quadrant 4, where Purdue and Tennessee were, I think, the highest picked teams, for Purdue and Michigan State. The people that pick Purdue are to think, oh, well, I need Purdue to lose anyway. I'm going to take Houston. And they're going to take Houston. Now, we want Houston to win, but we also want Houston to be picked by other people, so less people have them available when they play Alabama or BYU that we're forced onto by taking Duke on Thursday. So I think you would have to take. I like the idea of taking the bottom right game, the Tennessee Kentucky game, and then hoping Houston wins or we're boxed out. But Houston's going to be a 9-point favorite. If people are looking at favorites and they've already taken Purdue, I think they're just going to jump on them because they need Purdue to lose anyway, not realizing that they could still hope that they win and pick another game. That would require multiple games rather than one. And then as long as Tennessee wins, we would have Houston. Then we would have Houston versus Tennessee. And then as long as Houston wins, then now we have our Houston against our BYU Alabama. I think that is very unchalky. I think a lot of people will have already used I think a lot of people will use Houston on that Purdue game, especially the people who have already taken Purdue.
So, and here's the parlay again that I keep referring to. Okay, when you're seeing these teams in like let's say the bottom right where you have 3 teams available. So if you want to attack the bottom right using the teams that are likely to win, 2 ways to do it. Okay, one, if you take Houston and then need to them to lose to Kentucky, Tennessee winner, and so the parlay of that again is Houston 0.7 times their ability to lose their next round, which is probably a 0.3. So only about 20% likelihood that works out for you. Okay. However, if you play Tennessee, for example, yes, you need Houston win also, but yet still, even the 3 things combined are going to be much more likely than the 2 things combined of Houston followed by a loss. So if you need, again, Tennessee, Houston, okay, it's still 0.7 times 0.7. So it's that 0.35 versus 0.2 thing. So don't worry about the fact that oh my God, if I play Tennessee, then I need Houston to win anyway, because you know what? They're very likely to win. So the idea of Houston winning and then losing the next round is not that likely. So you, from a math perspective, you're going to want to play Tennessee if you attack this region, followed by and then again you're going to hope for you need this parlay anyway, pretty much. So Kentucky, Houston. The only question is, are you going to want to take Houston? Let's say you get through to Duke, and let's say that Bama's here. Let's say it's Duke, Bama, and now it's Houston, Tennessee. Okay, and you have taken Tennessee, so you're going to need Houston. Do you want to take Houston and root for Bama, or take Bama and root for Houston? You probably want to take Bama and root for Houston. Okay. So that not only, so that, if you root for Houston, then you'll get a pick actually in the Final 4, So,
a lot of that will also be based on how many people are left and what
right.
they do. I mean, it's very unlikely you'd ever want to box yourself out
Right.
in these pools. There are rare scenarios, but the reason I like taking Tennessee, like Duke on Thursday, Tennessee on Friday, and rooting for a Houston beating Tennessee and then Alabama or BYU beating Duke is it doesn't matter. The left side you've left completely wide open.
You can just sit here and go like this.
And so it doesn't matter who makes the Final 4 on the left. And I'm going to circle back to my first point with Eric off stream that I started with earlier is if the Final 4 contains Texas Tech or Maryland, that will have knocked out a lot of people or boxed out a lot of people because those are the 2 the 2 least available teams from Thursday. So Thursday plays Saturday, and then people will be out or they'll be boxed out.
And you'll be able to see. So you're going to have to make a pick from the left side in the final 8, but that's fine. But you'll see like what has happened over here, and you'll be able to plan out, what you want, in the final 8 and final 4 really easily. So, but you just got to get through this mess over here, which is fine.
So for Ryan, what this path does, I'm pretty sure, is it means once the Final 4 is set, if you can let me look, once the Final 4 is set, you just haven't used very many. I think you'd only use one of the 4 remaining teams. That's it. So you would have a choice on the left side of who to take, and just figure it out based on who's left. And then on the right the right side, you're going to want you're not going to pick the right side.
No. In the Final 4, Okay, remember the Final Four. You have to have a rep. You have to have picked a team from the left side to make the Final Four. Okay, you have to pick one from each
Oh
side.
yeah. Okay,
So,
yeah. So
but
you
what I'm saying is that when you're about to make your pick in the final eight, you'll know what you.
you'll know. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what I should have said.
So now to push the envelope here, he did give me two entries to look at. Now I want to see if there's any difference between these two.
Oh,
So
perfect. There is. He used Maryland.
there's a
Okay,
big
this is good.
difference.
We should have this discussion.
There's a huge difference because number one, he's picked three teams that are dead here. He used Tennessee.
Oh, this
Which,
is good. This is perfect. This is the exact opposite.
yeah, exactly, and he's already used Maryland. And his suggest well again, he's really locked into this Duke Bama thing. So
let me think here. So this is good because this is the for quadrants 3 and 4. We haven't discussed having already used these teams.
yep.
All right. So I would. This you could definitely take Florida in quadrant 3.
No, so again, same thing as before. Okay, same parlay thing. If you take Florida, then you need them to lose to the winner of Texas, Arkansas. So that parlay is 0.7 again times maybe 0.3, which is 0.2, as opposed to if you take Tech, they're 0.7. Okay, then you need.
But I like that because Tech is so chalk. I like
that's the difference.
So that's why I like it.
That's the
I would have said it anyway, as you could take Florida. But I like taking Florida because Texas Tech's already very little available, and they'll be very chalky on Thursday. What it also allows them to do is not have the same entry twice, because otherwise, I guess what he could do is
he can't have the
Duke
same.
in one and Alabama in the other.
Have the same entry twice because again, in this entry he's used Tennessee. So I was suggesting maybe that he used Tennessee in Friday in that entry, in the previous entry, to keep the left side clean. But now we don't have that option, and you can't even use Tennessee anyway. You probably
could just take Kentucky. I mean, like
you again, same thing. So that's fine. That's actually works. So then you could play Kentucky as they're actually 35%. They're actually not bad. So they're 35%, and then root for the winner of Houston Purdue to beat them, which makes sense. Or you could just play it up here and play the Michigan State Auburn parlay.
Right? Yeah, I don't mind the Kentucky one because Purdue was heavily taked in the first 2 rounds.
Okay.
If Purdue were to play Kentucky, it's probably I'm just looking at KenPom numbers. Purdue 24. Okay, it's like a coin flip.
It'll be a coin flip.
Purdue would be unavailable to a lot of people. No one's picking them against Houston, but it would have knocked out a lot of people. It took Houston, assuming Purdue gets there, and then all the people who got there and used Purdue in the first and second round, they would be. They would not be on that path. They'd either be boxed out because they've already taken Kentucky, which is unlikely, or they're all going to be on Kentucky, and then you get to take Purdue or hope Purdue makes it to the finals.
Well, so again, in this entry, what is the difference? Can you take? So you're saying that in this entry, you're more inclined to take somebody like Florida than in the previous entry, because this entry you don't have the option to keep that whole bottom left clean. Is that the idea?
Also, so it gives you more options on quadrant 2 with by not picking Duke. Whereas if Duke loses, you're still not boxed out or out because you can take the BYU Alabama winner to beat Arizona. But if Duke wins, you still have Duke available. But also because Texas Tech is already been chalk, they're going to be chalk again.
Well,
and if they win, if they lose, it knocks a lot of people out. And if they win, they will be. I mean, how big of? Yeah, they're going to be an underdog, but it's a matter of the pick breakdown at that point, and you're getting really good pot odds by either taking Texas Tech to win in the next round or hoping that they win, or needing them to win and going for quadrant 1 instead.
And I'll tell you the annoying thing. The annoying thing also is that
I would take with his 2 entries. I would go Duke in the other one, and I would go Florida. it gives you options, but it allows for if you win both your games and Texas Tech makes the Final Four, it gives you the most chances to win the most money with two different entries.
On this entry, how would you approach Friday? So you don't have the
Kentucky. I would take Kentucky.
You wouldn't go for the top left?
I guess I should look at it. The reason I like Kentucky is, again, Purdue is heavily used in rounds 1 and 2. So the problem is they're a big underdog, but Houston also might be very heavily picked. So it could be, as long as you win,
right,
the result of the Houston Purdue game, it might be a negligible difference. It might not even matter. But we have not talked about the top left. I would do.
I mean, the best math thing in the top left is Michigan State, and then hope for Auburn. And the Michigan State Auburn parlay is the most likely, you know what I mean, to advance, and you have all four. You can do it. So if you do that, Michigan State, and then whoever wins Auburn, Michigan, most likely Auburn, you'll either play them or root against them. And the good thing, like you said, is like the same as your analysis in the previous entry. Like if you played Florida, you need them to lose anyway. So if that's the case, then you're gonna have, probably an underdog in the Final Four here coming out of this region. So you're probably gonna want to have Auburn. Actually, I mean, you're gonna want to be able to, I guess, either pick them or root for them. So wait a minute, hold on. So if you get Florida through and then Texas, yeah, you could play Tech in the Final 8 and root for whoever here, and then you could have a big time favorite against Texas Tech in the Final Four. Okay. So Florida, and then boy, this is tough between Friday. I think you're. Let's look at the math again. So if you want Michigan State, Auburn, I think you're probably just supposed to take Michigan State. I think instead of going for that parlay, you play Michigan State and then one loss. So that'd be 30% as opposed to Houston. Let's say Kentucky, Houston. Yeah, I think, Ryan, I think you're probably supposed to, if you're fortunate enough to get through, I think Florida, Michigan State. If you play Florida, Michigan State, the problem is then you'd have to either play Auburn or root for them. So you play Tech, root for Auburn, then play Auburn in the Final Four, and then you're good over here. I don't know.
Okay, I think I understand this region. We haven't discussed it. We discussed it off stream for one of Eric's pools where he's forced on Ole Miss. But I think for quadrant 1, because none of these teams have been picked. I mean, like no one's picked Michigan.
Michigan State, I think people.
But no one's taken Michigan.
Right, that's correct.
And
Auburn.
And no one's taken Auburn. Okay?
Or
that's good and bad.
Right.
I'm gonna look at the good part. The reason I like that is Michigan State is the only team that's been picked in that region.
Right.
So what you want is, if you haven't taken Michigan State, you want Michigan State to beat Auburn. I think that offers the most EV. So I wouldn't pick anything from this. I really would go the other. I would stay away from it. If you've taken Michigan State, I would take Ole Miss. We should throw that out there. If you've taken Michigan State, I would take Ole Miss, and that allows you to be more open on quadrant 4. And then you would be wanting the Auburn-Michigan winner to beat Ole Miss. So that's the one thing I really like from quadrant 1. But if you haven't taken any of the teams from quadrant 1, I wouldn't touch it. I would definitely either pick Michigan State to beat Auburn, or I would want Michigan State to beat Auburn so I could pick Michigan State in the Final Four.
Well, I'll push back on one thing, and then I'll emphasize something you said another thing. I think that if you have taken Michigan State, I don't think you need to take Mississippi if you have Tennessee available in the bottom right.
I don't say you have to, but you could.
Right.
Otherwise, I just don't like I don't like making a pick from that region. at all, unless you've
Well,
taken Michigan State.
well, that's the part I'm going to emphasize. And one thing I really never considered until literally this morning, you talked to me about this. And I got to think about it a little more. The idea of, see, normally I would say that, you maintain this flexibility so that, like, okay, so now you have four teams to choose from. You have a completely clean top left, or in the other extreme, we talked about this bottom left. Those variations where you had a clean bottom left. On the one hand, I was like, oh, that's so cool. Now I have flexibility, but sort of like Survivor in football. I mean, why burn all your flexibility now? You could just freaking push it further, even. Like these teams are so scarce that if you can get away with another round of not using either of them, if you can get like Maryland, like you said, Maryland against Texas Tech, for example, I mean, somehow, and you have the ability to play one of these teams, or not even, or root for them again. Like you said, just stay away again. Then you'll be the only one probably. And they'll be able.
And just remember that there's only 4 games, so let's. I have like 10 minutes. I got to go.
Oh, good. Good. Otherwise, this would go until 2:05.
For Friday, there's only 4 games, so let's pretend all games are equal, 25% per team. Okay, and then let's look at game by game, or team by team. 0 people are going to take Michigan. There's 8 teams, 12.5% each. 0 people are taking Michigan.
You say that, okay, but
well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's like it's basically 0.
Right.
0 people are taking Purdue. 0. So now we have 6 teams for all the picks to be made from, and all the other teams will be picked. But which team is going to be the least picked next? I think it's going to be Auburn. I think Auburn will be the 3rd least picked team on Friday. I'm very confident of that. And the reason that's relevant is you got to think what that is going to make the bracket look like the rest of the way. You have, if everybody's still in, no one took Auburn in the first round, basically. No one took them in the second round. No one took them in the third round. Now everybody has Auburn left. So what you don't want to do is to be doing exactly what everyone else does with Auburn. You want to do the exact opposite.
Yeah, I don't think people are going to pick Auburn, because I think of that quadrant. I think the only team people have played is Michigan State. So I don't think people are going to play Auburn.
I agree. Well, I think no one's going to take. I think it'll be, right. But I think they'll take more than 0. Okay, so basically, 5 teams are going to be taken. It's going to be Houston, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Michigan State. 2 of them are play each other. I don't think you're supposed to take Michigan State ever, either. So I just don't think you're supposed to. If you didn't take them, in the first round as a monster favorite, and I think I like them.
You're supposed to keep. So you're saying you're supposed to keep holding Michigan State.
Yeah, I'm very confident of that, because if you don't want, if they don't have to, people don't want to take underdogs. So everyone's going to have Auburn. Assuming they win, everyone's going to have Auburn left. You want Auburn to play the strongest competition possible in the next game, which would be Michigan State. So you don't want to take Michigan State because you don't have to take Michigan State, because you could have taken none of them. You could have an Auburn Michigan State matchup in the next round and not have taken either, and you don't even have to take that game. But you could hope Michigan State beats them, because a lot more people will take Auburn than Michigan State. So I think you should never take Michigan State.
Yeah.
And actually, I would rather take Auburn than Michigan State. And I just feel sick if Ole Miss beat Michigan State.
So you're saying that you take Auburn and then root for Michigan, and then root for Michigan State, and then obviously either take Michigan State or once again just root for Michigan State in the final 8 against Auburn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not.
I mean, I would take Auburn over Michigan State, because Auburn's going to be very little picked.
Like you said,
so you need them to lose, whether you pick them to lose or not. You need them to lose. You want them to play against the strongest team possible. That's Michigan State, not Ole Miss. And
if you take Michigan State, you get Evie early because they're not as they've been used, but you're going to be on a real chalky Auburn
Yeah, and Michigan State's been picked. So
Yeah.
since they were picked, it means if you're picking a team, you're picking a team that's
Yeah.
been picked versus a team Auburn that hasn't been picked. So
Right.
most people will be on Auburn. They're also going to be the favorite compared to Michigan State. But then if you win, less people have Michigan State to pick them to begin with, and then you're also picking the underdog. Again, don't think in terms of what the win percent. The win percentages are important, but the path is much more important. This will be much more clearly defined after Friday. After Friday, if you're still in your pool,
Well,
open up the standings and then get a visual on what people have left. It's going to be very obvious. It should be very obvious what you should do.
If you're fortunate to make it through Thursday or Friday, which I mean, listen, you'll be picking favorites. I mean, like, but you just have to root for other stuff. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just so you guys know, I'm actually going to be at the aforementioned Duke Zona BYU Alabama game tomorrow. That's in New Jersey, and I'm bringing myself.
I would have met you for the first time in person if St. Mary's won. I already had my plane ticket.
Oh, that sucks.
I booked that plane ticket every year, and they never made the Sweet 16 in 2010. But I was going to fly into LaGuardia and stay in the city for the weekend.
Well, we'll do it one of these days. But okay, thank you once again, and Ryan Hall, Ryan, you're welcome for me featuring your entries for 50% of this, and I hope you win. And actually, I hope you get second. I hope I win. Okay, that's it. Good luck, everybody. Thanks, Mike.
Bye bye. My brain's warmed up for the day.
Yes.